After beating the demon lord, hero Himmel, priest Heider, dwarf warrior Eisen, and elf mage Frieren go back to the royal capital. Himmel, Heider, and Eisen are ready to settle down after their 10-year adventure, but Frieren, who can live for thousands of years, thinks 10 years is not much and plans to travel and learn new spells. They all watch the Era meteor shower together, and Frieren promises to show them a better spot in 50 years for the next shower. 50 years later, Frieren comes back and sees Himmel and Heider are old, while Eisen is middle-aged. They embark on one final adventure to see the meteors again after getting a dragon horn from Himmel. Himmel passes away from old age shortly after the trip. At Himmel's funeral, Frieren sadly realizes she never truly got to know him and decides to learn as much about humans as she can. 20 years later, she returns and discovers the now very old Heider has adopted a war orphan named Fern, who is 9 years old. Fern shows promise as a mage, and Heider, fearing death in his old age, asks Frieren to research magic that extends life and teach Fern in her free time. Frieren agrees after finding out that Fern is already very skilled despite her youth. Frieren spends 4 years teaching Fern while translating an old book about living forever. Heider gets really sick, and Fern practices a lot to become a mage so Heider can see her success. Fern shares that after her parents died, Heider stopped her from doing something really bad. To repay him, she wants to show she can survive alone. Frieren translates the book, but it doesn't say anything about living longer. Heider already knew that. He just used it as an excuse for Frieren to train Fern. Heider passes away, and Fern joins Frieren on her journeys. However, Fern is confused about why Frieren spends so much time learning spells, even the silly ones. In a village, they find a statue of Himmel, and Frieren wants to decorate it with blue moon weed, a flower from Himmel's hometown that doesn't exist anymore. They spend 6 months looking for even one flower so Frieren can save it. Fern gets frustrated, thinking Frieren could be helping the world instead of doing seemingly pointless tasks. Frieren reveals that Himmel inspired her to collect spells to avoid feeling indifferent due to her long life. Finally, they find the flower in a nest of sea brats, allowing Frieren to create a field of them in memory of Himmel. Fern realizes it's essential to have a passion, whether it's for magic or anything else. Fern sees Frieren acting strangely and follows her to some weird and dangerous stores. Frieren admits that, despite trying, she hasn't really learned much about Fern and was trying to think of a birthday gift. Fern is happy that Frieren at least made an effort to know her better. Frieren decides to go back to places she visited with Himmel, Heider, and Eisen. The first place is a village where Frieren sealed away Qual, the demon of corruption. The seal is about to break, so Frieren needs to defeat Qual. She's surprised to find out that Himmel checked the seal every year until he passed away and always believed Frieren would come before it broke. Frieren reveals that Qual created a powerful spell that could bypass all barriers and armor, hitting the body directly. At that time, the spell was so strong that she could only seal him away instead of destroying him. Qual is unsealed, but Frieren shares that in the 80 years he's been asleep, human mages learned and figured out his spell. They developed new defense spells to block it. Unable to harm them, Qual is easily defeated when Frieren uses his own spell on him, which he doesn't know how to defend against. Frieren realizes that the village elder is a boy she met 80 years ago, bringing back fond memories of Himmel. Fern also points out that Himmel must have had a lot of trust in Frieren to be so sure she would come back to deal with Qual. Frieren cleans a beach and gets a fake book from a famous mage, Flam. They finish the job by New Year, a time when locals watch the sunrise. Frieren, who usually sleeps in, missed it last time and upset her friends. This time, she makes it, but the sunrise seems boring until she sees Fern enjoying it. Frieren realizes missing it upset everyone because they were supposed to watch it together. They then visit Eisen's home after not seeing him for 30 years. Eisen asks for help finding Flam's real book in Vol Basin, as Flam supposedly found a way to talk to the dead. Eisen thinks it would be good for Frieren to speak with Himmel one more time. Frieren remembers Flammy was her human master 1,000 years ago, who told her to find her home if she ever regretted and wanted to talk to the dead. Frieren finds Flam's real book, which describes where all souls go, Oriole, at the northernmost point of the continent where the Demon Lord's castle is. On the way home, Eisen is happy Frieren is learning to care about people and is a good teacher to Fern. Frieren asks Eisen to come to Oriole with them, but he says no, as he would slow her down in his old age. However, Eisen reminds them that their original adventure to the Demon King's castle took 10 years, and Frieren agrees. Frieren knows that 10 years might just be a small part of Fern's life, but Fern still chooses to go along with her. Soon, they reach a village where people have vanished after seeing ghosts of their dead family members. Frieren thinks it's an Einsam, a monster that tricks people with illusion magic. The illusions can be destroyed with attack magic, but it's tough because fighters can't attack the ghosts of their loved ones and end up becoming the monster's prey. Fern almost falls for a ghost of Hyder, but Frieren quickly gets rid of Himmel's ghost, revealing the Einsam so Fern can defeat it. They decide to kill a dragon to get a magic book from its nest. To do this, they need a strong warrior, so they look for Stark, one of Eisen's students who once beat a dragon in a staring contest and now lives nearby. Stark confesses he's never killed a monster before and only won the staring contest because he was too scared to move. Frieren gives him until morning to decide if he'll help. Fern isn't sure if Stark is up to the task, but Frieren is confident because Eisen's training has made Stark strong enough to cut through solid rock with his axe. Stark says he's strong enough to face the dragon, but too scared. Fern tells him he just needs determination. The next day, Stark reluctantly agrees to distract the dragon, even though he's still scared. Frieren mentions that even Eisen was scared before big battles. Stark fights the dragon on his own and defeats it without help from Frieren and Fern. Frieren gets the magic book, and Stark decides to join them on their journey. The trio goes north to the city of Wall, but finds the checkpoint closed due to more monsters in the north. Frieren is okay with staying in the city for her magic research, but Fern and Stark worry when they hear it might take up to 2 years to reopen the checkpoint. Stark tells Fern he wants to go on an adventure to share stories with Eisen. Luckily, the city's leader recognizes Frieren and, thinking she's heading north to deal with the monsters, opens the checkpoint for her. Frieren and her group get a hero's farewell, which embarrasses Frieren but excites Fern and Stark, marking the official start of their adventure. Frieren and her group keep going north, and Frieren explains that the elven race is declining because their long lives make them too indifferent to have babies. They pass by a village with statues of Frieren and her original party celebrating Liberation Day. Frieren remembers Himmel wanting to leave statues as reminders that they really existed, not just fairy tales. On their way to another city, Frieren sees demons and tries to attack them. But the city guards arrest her for threatening peace and voice. Fern and Stark visit Frieren in the dungeon and tell her that one of the Demon Lord's lieutenants, Aura, has regained power and has been fighting the city for 28 years. Both sides are now talking about peace. However, Frieren warns from experience that demons can't be reasoned with. They only learn human language to deceive humans. As Frieren predicted, the demon peace envoy, led by Lugner, is trying to trick the city into lowering its barrier so Aura can attack with her army. One of Lugner's attendants, Drott, goes to the dungeon to kill Frieren, but she warns him that she's much stronger than Aura. Drott doesn't listen to Frieren's warning and attacks her, but she easily defeats him and gets out of the dungeon. The city's leader, Granat, gets suspicious about Drott disappearing and Frieren escaping, so he talks to Lugner. Lugner, caught in his plan, captures Granat to make him turn off the city's barrier. Fern and Stark decide to warn Granat about Lugner when they find Frieren. Frieren doesn't want to help them against Lugner, thinking Fern and Stark are strong enough to beat him. Instead, she goes to face Aura, who's waiting outside the city with her army. That night, Fern and Stark sneak into the castle and team up to seriously hurt Lugner. With Granat badly hurt, the two adventurers decide to rescue him and leave. While healing, Lugner realizes that Frieren is in the city. He remembers how she's also known as Frieren the Slayer for killing more demons than anyone in history. Outside the city, Frieren confronts Aura directly. Fern and Stark bring Granat to safety in the town church. Granat warns them that Aura's powerful tool is a magic thing called the Scales of Obedience. It measures how much magic power she and her opponent have. The one with more magic power can control the other, and that's how she makes an army of puppets. Frieren destroys some of Aura's puppets and realizes that Aura doesn't understand humans, so she plans to defeat her like a monster. Back in the city, Lugner and his assistant Linny surprise Fern and Stark. At first, the demons are winning, but Stark figures out that Linny copied Aizen's fighting style by watching him. She doesn't have the strength to do his moves with killing force, and Stark uses that to his advantage. He lets her hit him so he can then defeat her. Fern takes control by using her strength, casting spells faster than even Frieren. Eventually, she overcomes Lugner's defenses and defeats him. Badly hurt, Lugner wonders why Fern is so strong. He figures out that she had been hiding her magic power to seem weaker, which is a big no-no for demon mages. Fern then finishes off Lugner. In a flashback 1,000 years ago, Flam finds Frieren as the only survivor in a destroyed elf village. Frieren had managed to kill the demon general attacking her. Flam decides to be Frieren's teacher and shows her how to hide her magic power forever. She also teaches Frieren how to fight demons, since demons are proud and can't hide their magic power. Flam explains that by hiding their power, they can surprise demons and defeat them easily. Flam's last lesson to Frieren is to keep practicing and hiding her magic until she's strong enough to beat the Demon King. 1,000 years later, Himmel and his group find Frieren and try to get her to join them. Frieren decides to join when she sees that Himmel can sense her real power. In the present, Aura uses the scales of obedience, but is shocked when Frieren reveals her true magic power. Frieren controls Aura, and Aura is forced to behead herself under Frieren's command. After showing respect to Aura's victims and enjoying Granite's kindness, Frieren and her group continue their journey. They plan to visit Usserst, a big magical city up north, to get a special mage certification. It will let them travel through the northern plateau. On the way, they get lost in a snowstorm at the bottom of the Schwer Mountains, and Stark gets really cold. Luckily, they find a shelter and meet an elven monk named Kraft. Frieren and her group stay with Kraft in the cabin for 6 months to wait out the winter. Kraft then shares with Frieren that he worships the goddess. All his old friends are gone, and no one remembers his achievements. He believes only the goddess will remember and praise him when he goes to heaven. Kraft asks about Frieren's past, offering to praise her instead of the goddess. This brings back a memory where Hyder once said the same words to Frieren, and she turns down Kraft's offer, saying someone else has already praised her. Kraft advises Frieren to cherish her friends before saying goodbye to her and her group. While traveling to Usserst, Frieren and her group visit the Village of the Sword, where the hero's sword is kept. Frieren has to clear out monsters drawn to the sword regularly. Stark sees the hero's sword still stuck in a stone, and it confuses him because he heard stories that Himmel successfully pulled the sword. Frieren explains that Himmel couldn't pull the sword, but stories later said he did. She remembers Himmel not giving up, saying he'd prove himself a hero without the sword by defeating the Demon Lord. They then go to the next town, and Fern finds out it's Stark's 18th birthday. She asks him what gift he'd like. Stark reveals he's not used to getting gifts because his warrior family never celebrated birthdays. They thought he was a failure for being scared and running away when a monster attacked their village. Fern reassures him that she and Frieren won't let him run away and helps him buy a silver bracelet. Back at the inn, Frieren makes Hamburg steaks, a tradition Aizen always followed on birthdays. This reminds Stark of his older brother Stoltz secretly making him Hamburg steak on his birthday and telling him to leave the village so he can live. Stark feels some closure, realizing his brother truly loved him.